This is the January 16th meeting of the Fairfield Harbor Management Commission. And my name is Don Hyman. I'm the chair. To my right is Chris Smith. Around the table we have George Harris, Jeff Warren, Doug Henry, Brian Leclerc, Jeff Stedman. On the line we have Dave Henry, Belinda Shepard, and is Doug there? I think that's it. Okay, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, and now we have a special situation here. It's been brought to my attention that historically we have this moment when commissioners leave that have served us so long and well, such as Kim Taylor and Jack Hirschler, that it's appropriate to have some recognition for them and to toast them and to celebrate a little bit. And we're going to do that now, and then go into the regular business of the meeting after that. But we have some time allocated for that.
I don't know if the first selectman is planning to come downstairs, is he?
Jen Carpenter from the first selectman's office. He had to go to a police promotion ceremony, so he's sorry he's missing this, but I'm happy to be here, of course, to represent him.
Good.
Thank you both so much.
So I think, let me just say, we've said this before, each of us in different ways, but let me say it one more time. Kim and Jack, your contributions have been invaluable. And as I sit here in this chair and think of all that you've done and all I have to do and all we have to do, it's really intimidating, but it's also an honor to carry on as you've done and try to carry on as you've done. Each of you have been diligent, collegial, hardworking, and fun to be with, too. I'm not as fun, but I'll try to be fun. And Jeff Stedman has done a couple of things here. He's created these beautiful photographs that are inscribed for each of you. They're suitable for framing, and they are framed. And there's one for Jack, and there's one for Kim. And those of you who are looking at your phones can't see this, but these are beautiful photographs. And if you turn around, I'll take a picture of you.
All right.
I don't know what we'll do with it, but we'll have it. Thank you. And
can someone read the inscriptions that were done?
Kim, can you read your inscription?
Sure. It says, Fairfield Harbor Management Commission, Town of Fairfield, presented to Kim Taylor, Commissioner 2016-2023, Chair 2020 to 2023, in most grateful appreciation of your outstanding and principled leadership and public service as a member and chair of the Harbor Management Commission, and your tireless efforts to uphold and advance the Southport Harbor Management Plan to guide the beneficial use and conservation of our beautiful and historic harbor, January 16, 2024. And I might just add that these overhead pictures that Jeff has taken are on the front cover of most of the town presentations that we've done, and I believe is on the online mooring system, the intro page. So this picture should probably has probably become our, what's the right word, our not motto, our brand, yes. So Jeff, thank you, and to all, thank you, wonderful, and I couldn't have done it without Jeff. Mostly Betty and Jeff, who made me look good for you.
And if anything's spelled wrong, we'll put another one with the
Thank you all.
Jack, you want to say anything?
No, can fit it all.
Okay.
You know.
Well, Betty has, in addition to all the other things that Betty does, which I've learned is quite a lot, she's made some refreshment for today. Betty, what did you make? Whiskey cake. But my wife has explained that when you bake with whiskey or wine, all that alcohol gets evaporated.
You gotta pour it in after you do it.
So, in case that's not true, we also have chocolate chip cookies from the pantry, which I assure you have no alcohol in them. So they're all over here. And so let's take a couple of minutes to get some refreshment and enjoy each other a little bit. Then we'll start into the business within the next 5 or 10 minutes, if that's okay. All right?
So just tell members of the public that you're declared a recess for approximately 5 to 10 minutes.
We're declaring a recess for 5 to 10 minutes in order to relax.
You want to stop the recording while that's on?
Stop the recording.
Kim?
I don't know.
Kim, what is the code for?
Kim,
Star 9 and then 1 again.
Pause recording.
Star 9.
Star 9.
That's not the sound.
Okay. So do I need to announce who's here again, or is that good from the last recording? At least no one knows. All right. Well, again, thank you all for coming and for participating in this salute to our outgoing chair and vice chair. What we're going to do, as I said in some other communication, because we have some guests here today, is try to deal with the Lower Wharf signage issue first and then go into the rest of the meeting. And to that end, I wanted to just hit the first of the different points in the chairman's report. And what we're going to do today is look at this version of the sign that's been discussed at Lower Wharf, and I have some copies of it to hand out. Maybe could you do that for me? It's black and white copies. This sign has been reviewed by Attorney Pierce, who was here, Town Attorney. Thank you very much, Philip Pierce. Right? And sure, why not? By Peter Ritchie, the town's risk manager. By Anthony Calabrese, the Parks and Recreation Director. And this is where we've come out. And we brought this for you to look at today. And the hope is that we can deal with some of the issues that have come up in the past and finalize this. I'll just leave this here for the moment. Let's just to review, why are we even talking about a sign for Lower Wharf? Just, why is that repeatedly something that comes up? Just to make it clear, the town ordered a risk assessment, and part of those risk assessment recommendations that came to the town called for signage at Lower Wharf to create a safer environment for people that were visiting the area. In addition, of course, the 2 deeds that relate to the acquisition of Lower Wharf also call for signage at that location with different language. All of that has been reviewed by the town attorney and by people I mentioned before, and by yourselves. And this is where we are now. And so the goal today is to discuss that, make sure you're comfortable with the content of the sign. And then we have the other question of where the sign goes, and we talked about that with Laura Lawler, who's from the Sasquatch Association, and came up with some recommendations. And then other other types of signs that might be considered for Lower Wharf in the future, including a sign that speaks to some of the historic elements and events that went on there, so that we create some kind of a historic insight into that spot, as well as appreciate the beauty of it. There's another step after we come to some closure on this eventually, today, I hope, but if not today, whatever that is, and that is to go to the Historic District Commission with the approved sign. And that will be, I imagine, another public hearing. And George has done some research on that. Can you tell us what?
Right, I have emailed the Historic District Commission. Unfortunately, they haven't gotten back to me as to exact steps, but they do have a public meeting every month, the same as we do. I have spoken by email with Mr. Cliver in the past, and he forwarded me the Historic District Handbook pages that deal with signage, and nothing that we're doing. We don't want glowing lights, anything lit. They wanted of, natural material, wood, which this will be, or metal. So I think we're okay as far as their guidelines. I don't see any, especially since we have the town's blessing and Saquon's blessing. I don't think there'll be any issue.
When we have that next hearing, whenever that is, with the Historic District Commission, I think that's an opportunity for any of the immediate neighbors on Harbor Road to come, listen, look, and if they have something to say or they need something explained to them, I think that would be a moment to do that as well. So I think that, the goal is to give people that come to Lower Wharf something to think about, to keep the experience safer. Does it eliminate the risk? No. But it gives people something to think about, gives them information that they need. It's a place and conforms with all of the direction that we've received. So, having said that, there's one other thing I should call to your attention. In the last review by the town attorney, there were two very small but important changes that were made. If you look at the copy that was given to you, we recommend inserting, instead of be mindful, it's being mindful of uneven surfaces and sudden drops. And in the bullet below that deals with dogs, there's more punctuation than is necessary. We would remove the comma and period after manner and insert a parentheses before town, as in town rules, and then a period at the end of the last parentheses. Those changes are marked, I think, on the copy that we gave to everybody. And I think those are the last changes that we all looked at and agreed on. So with that all said, I open the floor to some questions, comments from commissioners.
Hello, everybody. I've got a question.
Yes, who's talking, please?
This is Dave Henry.
Hi, Dave.
So just curious if there was any discussion along the lines for the dog language. I'm familiar with the other open spaces or dog-friendly spaces in town. They all have essentially dogs must be leashed within 100 feet of the parking lot or of cars. I was wondering if that ever came up or was part of the conversation with the Parks and Rec department.
I think there was some discussion about that early on, but because we're quite far from any parking, and we were trying to reduce language and to keep it simple, that dropped away.
Got it. That makes sense. Just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions?
We at the last meeting, we talked about the fact that it's such a large sign, so much information is being placed on this sign that maybe you might actually cause people to not read it. There's just too much there to go through. I mean, and are we really needing to put in that there's uneven steps and you might trip, watch your step. I mean, I guess there's a liability question that you're trying to accomplish, but isn't there some common sense about walking across uneven sidewalks all around the world? You know, everywhere you go, there's a liability that exists. Things of that nature. I think it seems to me you could reduce a lot from here. I thought we talked about that last time. Excuse me.
We did, and your point it has been made before by others. However, here's where I would ask our town attorney to weigh in on why we need this kind of language.
Well, I think there's common sense, and then there's signs like this that are protective of the town and putting people on notice, so that if somebody falls on the uneven surfaces, they're going to come to the town and say, there was nothing to warn me of that, right? So this sign...
Aren't there uneven surfaces at Southport Beach, and there isn't a sign of the same language there, for example, or just on the sidewalk at downtown Fairfield, where there might be some newspaper?
Yes, this is to me, this is a different thing than a sidewalk, this area. So, and I mean, town gets sued for conditions on sidewalks as well. I think it's impractical to put signs up around town wherever there is the potential that somebody could fall. Here, I think it's prudent and protective, and it came out, I believe, of the risk analysis that was done of the property. So I think it should be included. I agree with you, it's a lot of text, but given that we have to have a sign under one set of title restrictions that specifies certain things, we want people to be on notice of certain rules that are required. We want to be compliant with the risk analysis. We reduce the text. I think this is kind of the extent to which we can reduce it, unfortunately. I don't think there's much more that can be pulled out of it.
Why do we have to reference the town rules and regulations in reference to dog lists and nothing else? That seems like something that could be left out. This is a list of rules and regulations. Why do we have to reference the town?
I think it was inserted because dogs on that property have long been a kind of a sensitive matter. And I think we wanted to bring all of the validation that we could to that part of the instruction and rules and regulation. And we wanted to be consistent with regulations that are in place elsewhere in the town. And that's why we were citing that.
I think you probably could delete it. I think it's in other signs, and I think that's to Don's point, that's why it's in this sign, be consistent with those other signs.
Might I?
Jeff?
Yeah, just be the devil's advocate here, if you don't mind, just for the purpose of the discussion. Just for the background, when we prepared the harbor management plan in 1995, we identified the Treves property, as it was known then, as a property that the town should pursue acquisition of in the future if the opportunity did arise. And then it did arise in 1999. And the commission worked on that original deed. There's on the second floor conference room with Attorney Saxel at the time. So I don't recall that there's a requirement in that deed for signage in the first deed. And in fact, there was an understanding at that time that Mr. Treves his name should be noticed somehow on the property. And as an alternative to putting a sign on the property, because there is in that first deed a prohibition against any structures. My understanding was that a sign was not appropriate. And that as a result, Public Works got that big boulder that's down there now and brought that to the site to embed a plaque for Mr. Treves on it, as well as the subsequent plaques for Paris Russell and Steve Galvin. So my feeling is, and there was a lot of discussion about the historic nature of this property. It's in the National Register and State Register Historic District. It's different than an active recreation area. It's for passive recreation. It's not to attract people. And there's also the requirement in that first deed that the property owners who gave contributions to the acquisition and their successors who own the properties down there now, because some of those people have passed away or moved on, they would also have a say in whatever is put on that property. So my concern, again, just for the purpose of discussion and maybe protecting the Harbor Commission against criticisms later on, is that it's an historic property, you know, a sign that would seem to imply that it's an active recreational area and draw people to it is not, maybe not appropriate. And that the only reference to a sign that we could see is in that second deed, which is the property that's not the lower wharf. Now, this is separate from the risk assessment and the town requiring that there be a sign. I just wanted to raise those points. And then the other question is that this isn't much different than Perry Green in a way. So by putting a sign here, are we setting the precedent that there should be a similar sign on Perry Green, which is another historic property, which Sasquatch has an oversight for? And I remember pretty clearly, and it's other people, that when we talked about putting the notice for Mr. Treves on that property, that the way to do it was to bring in a boulder that would look like a natural part of the property and put it there rather than a sign on posts. And then that leaves the question of whether the neighbors across the street would look at this as something that attracts people to the area. Those are my, just for the sake of discussion before you vote, and of course it's up to you to.
Let me just point out, Jeff Stedman is a consultant to this commission, and his opinion is very valuable to us. He's not a voting member of the commission, but he's a very valued consultant to the commission.
So just so I understand, is the plaque on the boulder?
Yes.
Okay.
There's 3 plaques now on the boulder. That began with the one for Mr. Treves, who was the seller of the property.
So I don't disagree. I mean, the earlier deed restriction says no structures. The sign is, you know, probably a structure within the
And
meaning of that.
that's what
So
I
that creates
recall.
a complication of where you put the sign.
Yeah.
And you got 2 options: not put it on this piece, which maybe isn't a, you know, I don't think you want to put it only on the new piece because that's the lower of the 2 sections of Lower Wharf, right? So it may not put people on notice sufficiently. But you know, you either don't put it on this piece or you put it on this piece after giving notice to everybody that could raise objection, and they're okay with it. If the association's okay, that's one thing. But I agree, there are owners in here that are entitled to enforce it. So I think we would want to make sure that the assessors entitled don't have an objection to the location of this, if it is going to be on that piece. And now another option is that it's in the town right of way, and maybe that, you know, keeps it so that it's not within the scope of the title restriction.
As I mentioned earlier, there is another hearing that would happen at some point with the Historic District Commission. And it's my hope that at that hearing, all the kinds of people that we're talking about would be present, or if they want to be.
Yeah, my suggestion for process is that this commission get comfortable with what the sign looks like and what it says, and then you go to the Historic District Commission, you could put people on notice then, part of that application.
Right. Exactly. I think that's what that hearing would be for those neighbors to.
Yeah, but you would want to make sure specifically those people in the deed get notice of it, so that if they have an objection to it, they know if it's going to go on this piece.
Right.
Could you confirm that the only, from the deeds, the perspective of the deeds, the only requirement is with respect to the second deed, the small property, and that the requirement that you're talking about for a sign on the Lower Wharf itself is a result not of the deed, but of the risk assessment that the town did?
Right, so of the 2 deed restrictions, the second one is the only one that requires a sign.
For that piece of property?
Right. You could have 2 different signs. To me, that is, you know, that's more of an aesthetic decision the commission could make. More signs, typically people like more signs less than they like. Less signs is probably preferred, but.
And we have the risk assessment, which the town was commissioned.
Can I just ask one quick question about the risk assessment? Because you seem to say we don't have to put signs on every sidewalk, we don't have to put them everywhere where there's potentially danger. What is it specifically about this property that the risk assessment felt it was necessary to put all these things?
I have a copy of it here.
Yeah, no, I remember looking at it, but was there something, you know, the usage of the property, or was it the specific items that were discovered that they said, oh, these are more risky walls or structures that go the extra mile here? Because, I mean, if anybody, so somebody's gonna trip and fall, they're gonna sue the town whether there's a sign or not, right? And so there's some liability to get that by having a sign, but.
Yeah, I mean, just from one of the pictures shows just a lot of riprap. And
So,
things.
yeah, so you're
To
saying.
me, that's a different condition than a sidewalk.
Right,
Right.
but you're saying, so it's viewed as more dangerous in some way.
Yes.
But Sasko Beach and
But in that sense,
has
you know, you're still gonna get sued because you haven't fixed it. As opposed to having a sign there, like a Band-Aid.
Yeah, I mean, right, separately, there's a recommendation that things be repaired.
Right.
That should also be
So
done.
if that isn't done.
That should also be done.
Yeah.
And
If that
indeed,
gets done, if that gets done, it might obviate the need for a sign at some level.
I think at that point, the prudent thing to do would have a new risk assessment to see if there's a recommendation that we still have the sign even after the repairs and improvements.
and for your information, there is a plan to repair all of that, or much of that, that's under review, and we're looking for funding for it at this time.
But the original intent of the sign, for signage, was to prohibit swimming and people jumping off the wharf. That it kind of scope creeped into a different being with the risk assessment, is that right?
we did receive a letter from Attorney Fallon, who was representing the people that deeded the smaller part, asking where the sign was.
Yeah.
They were looking for the sign.
Yeah.
And, yeah, according to the information we got, Mr. Fallon, who's the attorney for someone in this, is asking that signage be posted and restrictions enforced in accordance with the warranty deed.
Right, so if the town doesn't comply with it, the successor, and I think that property sold, but, right, the successor entitled to enforce that restriction, so they could sue the town to say, put up the sign, right, so.
For the lack of a sign on the small property.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't apply to the lower wharf itself, that deed restriction.
Right.
That deed requirement.
So,
So then we're saying that this sign, it only goes to the smaller property.
No, the deed requirements for a sign are only with respect to the smaller property.
There's two driving forces. One, that's under
For the risk
deed
assessment,
for the
and
smaller
then the-
property, and then the risk assessment is actually for Lower Wharf, which is the
Whole
bigger
thing.
property.
so there's some conflicting situations, there's some ambiguity, there's some opportunity for just judgment, personal judgment that we have to make. And there is the request that we got to come up with the signage of the town, the risk manager, who unfortunately is not here at this time. My hope would be that we could come to closure on the sign as you've seen it discussed, and go forward with that. We can always, we will not be able to order the sign, or have it made until the next fiscal year. At the moment, there's no money in our budget to pay for it. We've requested an additional $1,000 as a one-time expense to meet this request. But at the moment, there's not money in our existing fiscal year budget to pay for it, so we can't even order the sign or have it created until there's money to pay for it, which will hopefully be the next fiscal year, end of June.
Might we hear from Sasquatch, since they have
Yes,
a role in
yes, Laura Lawler is here from Sasquatch Association.
I'm in favor of the sign. I don't think it's offensive. It sounds like, you would have to get buy-in from the neighbors, especially as to location. When I went down, we tried to find the least spot, which was kind of, if you're familiar with it, and you're looking at by the hedges, on the right as you come in through the stone wall. because then you're not blocking someone's view. If you live there, you're not saying you're blocking my view of the water. I think it's quite in keeping with the other signs in town. I think it's got integrity, it's not offensive, it's not metal, it's not shiny. Yeah, there's a lot of words on it, but I'm not sure how much, as an English major, how much more you could edit it down. But since it's not, it wouldn't be made until June, right? So it seems to me that it's time to, I mean, the steps would be, once it's approved here, the Sasplanag would approve it. Then would it go to the HDC?
Correct.
And then to the neighbors, or would the neighbors come to the HDC hearing?
The latter. We would invite all concerned to come to the Historic District Commission hearing.
And could conceivably they put it, somebody could object to it, then what? What
Well,
would happen if one neighbor doesn't want a sign?
at that point, it's really, I guess, the Historic District Commission's decision.
Well, there's two issues. So one would be whether the Historic District Commission would approve it. The other would be whether the neighbor is objecting by virtue of the title restriction on the prohibition on a sign on that first piece.
Right.
If that's the case, I mean, the commission would have to work that out with the neighbor. If the neighbor insists on no sign, it wouldn't be able to go on that piece. Figure out another option, whether it's part of the town right-of-way or the second piece that was acquired.
I've had some limited experience with signage on Perry Green. The issue being that there have been a few weddings. Caterers have set up 100 chairs. We've had a lot of things, and there's not supposed to be any chairs there. And we've had caterers who, either wittingly or unwittingly, pulled up and blocked traffic. And so the neighbors who live across from the green have all requested some sort of signage that there can be no public events. I mean, there's photo shoots and things like that on Perry Green. But we've been asked many times for signs. Nothing to do with the risk assessment, but much of people just should know. Just don't necessarily know the rules. And then I went down to the lower wharf the other day, and I was kind of surprised by how risky somebody could take a fall. I mean, it's pretty high off the water. And we're not talking about fencing or anything, but I assume that's part of the uneven ground. It makes me nervous.
Yeah, I think the sign it doesn't eliminate the risk. And yes, there is common sense that you would think people would follow. But it also gives people something else to think about when they are visiting Lower Wharf. Are there any other comments from either commissioners or from the public?
It doesn't seem as though the public was very concerned about swimming 2 years ago. And there were no swimming signs there. That didn't deter them. And there was the risk that is there now was there then. And it was exacerbated by the fact that were they not only jumping off the wharf, but they were jumping into the path of sailboats that were going by with no regard. And by the way, with parents filming it.
Amazing. Well, I think one thing that Laura and I talked about was that when the time comes that we have Lower Wharf repaired, assuming that moment comes, there would be certainly an opportunity for some additional discrete signage to get the message across about swimming and other safety issues.
Well, they got the message. They didn't want to pay any attention to it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a matter of awareness. It was a matter of caring.
Yeah.
I mean, I spoke to them personally, and they just ignored me if I sailed by.
Well, that's raises, that's part of this point. Do we want to make an effort to raise awareness of the risks and try to give people something else to think about to move towards a safer environment? Or do we not do that. I think not doing that would be a mistake, personally. But I think that's a matter for the commission to vote on. I would welcome a motion to approve the content of the sign as it's been last distributed. If anyone wants to make that motion, George.
I move that the commission approve the design of the sign as stated here on this paper. From there, I think we have some other issues to look into as far as the Historic District Commission, notifying the neighbors. Matt, before we vote, was just thinking that our legal responsibility is to put a sign on a small part, which we could do very small and...
Oh, let me just stop. I think you were making a motion, now you're making a comment. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Both are good, but...
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I think we need to get over the design of the sign. So I move that the sign be approved as stated on this flyer.
A second.
Thank you.
You mean just the sign design or the content?
The design and the content.
You know, just...
Who did the second?
So there's, the motion is to approve the content of the sign and the design of the sign. So we have something to take to the Historic District Commission for further review and comment by the public, by people in that neighborhood specifically, and people who were involved with the transfer of the land. But okay. So that's the motion. Okay, Betty? All in favor of that motion, please raise your hand.
Aye.
1, 2, 3. On the phone, who's in favor of that?
Dave Henry's on the phone.
Aye.
Dave is a yes.
Yep.
George is a yes. Jeff is a yes.
Chris.
And Chris is a yes. And I don't think I can vote, is that right? All opposed? Did you vote?
I didn't, but I'm an alternate, so I don't think I vote on everything unless I'm required to vote.
Okay. All right, so we have 4 yeses, no nos. The motion carries. Thank you. Well, let me take a breath. Thank you. There's another...
You might say that made a copy of some of the history of the Lower Wharf.
Yeah, we have a copy of...
Anybody wants to take out.
There's another 2 parts to this. I think when we can you pass these around? There is the location of the sign. As Laura said, there were 2 places that we considered. One was up against the hedge. As you walk in, it's on the right. So the back of the sign would be a couple of feet away from that hedge that's there now. That belongs to the landowner across the way. And the other place would be almost opposite. As you come in and you look left, you would see it. I think you've seen the photographs that we took in that. Do we need to vote on that location for the sign too now? Or should we defer on that? I think, the location is, I think we have to come to the Historic District Commission with both parts of it, location and content. Yeah. And Laura, I think, if I heard you correctly when we were at the site, your preference was up against the hedge?
Well, there's already a sign there that says dead end, not a few garbage receptacle, which we pay for and we love, but it's not like a sensitive area.
It's an area that already has signage
In my mind, it was sort
dog
of
waste.
as the entrance, sort of as you walk. So it would say you couldn't avoid it, but it also won't block anyone's view. There's already a sign there, and there's a garbage.
And the hedge gives it some protection from the elements.
The other option was to the left as you walk in, and then Don suggested it be sideways. In other words, you would just see the sign, if you walked in, you'd see it like this, but then you'd walk in and you could read it. So that, I guess,
Oh, there's the hedge, and Laura.
And then, but the other way is, it would be sideways, and I think the reasoning was, as an option, if you were a neighbor, you'd just see a slice of it. Am I being clear? It was on the left. So you'd have to
You
actually.
see the profile of the sign, not
You have
the
to
sign.
walk into the park, over to the rock with the plaque, to actually read it. I felt like it should go over here. I'm not gonna hold it up, though.
All right, can we,
It's not my job description. I think the HCC will wanna know, and the neighbors certainly will wanna know.
all that said, given that we've just approved the sign content and the design of the sign, are there any comments or questions on the location? Laura's weighed in on her preference as a Sasquatch Association president for where it might go. Yes,
I
Brian?
would just suggest, because I go down there a lot, almost daily in the summer, actually daily in the summer. A couple of thoughts. One is, if you're going to put it on the left side when you walk between the wall, one house directly across would see the profile, but remember, there are other people along Harbor Road that are going to see the whole thing in their profile, the view. Second is, you don't want to be in the way of activities. We have blessing of the fleet and things where equipment and people come on. You don't want to block, or the public works drives the trucks in there. You don't want it to get knocked over. But more important, the only way to access this is walking from north to south, with the entrance on your left. So if you want people to actually read it as they walk to turn in, they're not looking this way over their shoulder, they're looking right at that direction against the hedges. And that's the logical location for anyone entering. That's where they're going to be looking. The whole point of it is that people see it, not just to have it there.
Correct.
So I agree with that placement by the hedge.
All right. Jeff?
One other comment, some people have complained about this. It's our understanding that the agreement to the transfer of the property specified that the hedge couldn't be over 3 feet high, pursuant to the requirements for the lower wharf deed. That hedge was put in by the previous owner. And I'm not saying I know, but I know people have complained that hedge is not compliant with the coastal site plan review approval of the swap of the property.
Are you suggesting that? Who owns the hedge?
The owner of the property that had previously transferred that property to the town. That hedge was planted anyway, someone else has to bring that.
So maybe the sign would be higher than that?
Well, that's what I'm.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah.
I think we have some flexibility on the height of the sign, a little bit. It's, at the highest, I think it would be 4 feet, but we can make it lower.
That's a really good point, though.
I don't know who might bring a complaint or a grievance about it, but I have heard that. And the understanding was that any structures or plantings on that property could not exceed 3 feet.
Plantings, I think I read.
Who maintains the hedge, though, the neighbor?
The owner of the property
of
owner.
that property.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a conversation, we wanted to have a conversation with the landowner, we could, to lower the hedge, but that's separate from where the sign should go. And I would welcome a motion that said that the sign location should be next to the hedge, whatever height the hedge is at any given
But
point
toward
in
the
time.
wall, toward the edge, then.
I make a motion that the sign be placed near the hedge.
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor of this motion? Any opposition to this move? Aye? Thank you. Dave? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we have the content, the design, and the location blessed for further discussion at the next meeting of the Historic District Commission. I'd say one other thing for your information, and this is kind of an exploratory topic. Laura is and the Sasquatch Association is very interested in the history of Lower Wharf, of which I know very little, although there's certain stuff in the information that Jeff has passed around to us. I'm interested in exploring that notion. Personally, I think it would be interesting to have a discrete sign that said something about what has happened there historically and gave people not only risk information, but historic information to enrich their experience.
That's an interesting point, if I may. Something I just saw it today, which is the light went off. You know, these QR codes we have everywhere. I parked my car this morning in Bridgeport, and instead of paying the attendant, there's a QR code on the wall of the parking lot. Take a picture, it opens up the website, as you know. Restaurants use QR codes. Perhaps we could put a QR code on this, with something history of Lower Wharf, linking it. Because Jeff has amazing stuff, pictures, articles on the website. It's on the website. You might want to think about linking it, so someone who's going there, just take a picture of it and jump in. It might be an easy way to get, because you're not going to be able to put enough on a sign to do justice to a historic seafaring port, one of the oldest jetties in the country, you know, that kind of stuff. So maybe we can add maybe you want to amend your motion to have a QR code added.
Well, yeah, I think it's a good idea. If I think we have to figure out what it links to.
And we have spots, I think we have places already that it links to on, and we can make a link, but I think Jeff's got spots right on our website, your website already, with history and all kinds of articles and everything that you want to know about. And we can custom tailor that too, where that link is.
I was looking at his presentation today, there's the presentation that covers the whole harbor. But are you talking about something just specifically for Lower Wharf, or?
I know you could do, you know, I think anyone going there, it should be everything, Lower Wharf, Harbor. I think you can do a lot with it, because
then that would be easy to do then.
Museums could help. They're really good at that.
And we can custom tailor a page on the town website that links to, and then move some of this, not move it, copy some of these things, and have them on various spots.
Well, you know, as we said, we're not going to have this at least until the end of June, because there's no money to pay for it. And I think we could easily add a QR code.
Right.
What we have the other homework to do about what it links to.
Right.
The bigger.
So rather than voting on that now, we can vote on that in a future meeting.
Future meeting.
To amend the design to add the QR code.
Yeah.
Line saying so they don't think it's the rule QR code. It could be for the history of Harry, Lower Wharf, Harry Green, and the entire harbor or something. And you can put them in multiple spots, actually.
I think a small separate sign would make more sense, because this sign is about rules and regulations, and now you're adulterating the original purpose.
Fair enough.
But anyway.
And the Sasquatch group has had a lot of experience with interpretive signage that is devoted to this kind of information. So what I was hoping for is that we have a Lower Wharf committee that includes, at the moment, myself and George, and Belinda Shepard has agreed to join that committee. And I was hoping that we could just have that committee talk with Laura and come up with some ideas and recommendations and come back to the board, to the commission with some ideas. Because at this point, it's an exploration as opposed to precise recommendation of something. So can we do we have to vote on that? So just as a matter of course, I will ask the Lower Wharf Committee to continue having a dialogue with Laura about a way we can develop historic information for the public to share, be it through a QR code or some other discrete interpretive sign that is developed at another time. Those signs cost money. Another thing we don't have, and they would be developed. Laura has explained to me she has experience working with the Fairfield Museum, and there's grant money available for this kind of thing if you have the right proposal and the right elements and components. All of that requires research and exploration and discussion. I think it's worth pursuing, at least looking at. Okay? Laura and Philip, thank you very much. I appreciate your coming, and I think we wouldn't have been able to conclude this without you being here. Thank you.
Thanks, thank you.
Sweetie.
There is the plaque there, right?
No, because I was
The
like.
plaque during the World War 1812, as you're walking down the road, before you get
Oh, on
to,
the right side of the, is that in front of somebody's house?
yeah.
I've seen that. I know what you mean. I walk by there, and I've heard people doubt that, and
Yeah, I'm sure,
other
yeah.
people say, it's true.
There's another similar plaque at South Hill 3
Yeah.
about folks leaving for John Paul, whom I mentioned to you.
Yeah.
But the, you could actually put maybe something underneath that, the QR code.
Yeah. I think, you know, we live in a historic community, and sharing that information, once it's done concisely and accurately, can be a nice thing to do. Okay, that done. Let me quickly go through the chairman's report, the balance of the chairman's report, and pick up with the remainder of the meeting.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you have to
Yes.
approve the minutes.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you very much. It's time to review and approve the minutes. Are there any comments or questions or corrections to the minutes that have been provided to us? No?
I move that we approve the minutes as stands.
Very good.
Second.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you, George. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, the minutes have been approved.
They've been moved and seconded, not voted.
Thank you. I'm new to this. All right. All in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimously approved? Thank you. Okay. Now, Chairman's report. All right. So, more about Laurel Wharf, and I think Jeff will comment on this too. When we were back in December, Christine Vitale, the selectman, was doing her due diligence and checking out some of the background information on people coming into the commission as commissioners. And she called me and asked me a few questions, and she was very aware of the Lower Wharf dilemma we face. We have a problem, we have a plan, and we have no money or not immediately money in sight. And she suggested that we talk to our Hartford representatives, both in the Senate and in the House. And so Kim and I started doing that, as I think you know. We had a meeting in December with Jennifer Leeper. That was very successful. And then we had another meeting after Christmas with Tony Huang, which was very good too. And he has pledged to try to do what he can do to accelerate decision-making at Port Authority and look for alternate money elsewhere in Hartford too. Jeff was at that meeting. Bill Perugini was at that meeting. We ended it with the notion that we would give Senator Huang the information that he needs to take this further, and Jeff will be doing that, or creating a letter for us to do that with. Item 3 involved.
I have a question on that one.
Yes.
It's town property, so it wouldn't come out of our budget, would it? We have to find the money for this? It's town property that's in disrepair.
It's town property that's in disrepair, and later on in my report, the RTM agreed to spend approximately 20% of the proposed budget to repair it would come from town funds, if we were able to get 80% from other sources. And so that 80-20 split is conditioned upon an RTM approval in February.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the whole thing. I mean, the town is coming up to us saying that there's a risk there that we need to mitigate or talk about, the sign, the risk management that they want, but then they say, you have to fix it.
Right, whose wharf is it?
Right. It's a town wharf, it's town property.
It is town wharf.
If it says in the deed that it's the Harbor Management Commission's responsibility.
So don't we need a source of income then somehow to, okay, I'm sorry.
I don't mean to interrupt, but like other Perry Green project, that the town didn't allocate, or maybe they had allocated some money from its own capital account, but that came from a federal grant to the town. So these projects, the town will look for outside sources of funds to do the work, and that's what we've looked for in the past. And there is a grant program that historically is a state program that's been available for these. The other option is to go directly to the bond commission, as Senator Wong said that he might do. But it's not unusual for the town, any town project, to look for an outside source of funds to do it, through a state grant or a federal grant.
Okay.
If the town
And that's what we're doing
We're
right
acting
now.
as a town's proxy to find this money.
To find money,
Right.
as an alternative for the town to allocate the money from its own general fund.
I wasn't getting it because we don't really have an income other than.
No, we're looking for an outside source of funds, and the source that we were looking at requires a 20% match of local funds. So that might be something that would have to come from a town account someplace, if we can secure the larger grant.
Yeah.
But it's not
So
unusual.
that's the 80-20 split. And as I say later on, Senator Wong wanted us to confirm that the town would be good for 20% of this. And so we had a conversation with both Bill Hurley and Christine Brown, Chief of Staff to Bill Gerber, and both of them confirmed that, yes, the town would be good for 20% of the cost of repairing Lower Wharf, per the estimate that was developed by Race Engineering, which they looked at, which is on file. So, and that was good because we weren't exactly sure if we could count on that, and now we can, because it's been confirmed in email conversations with both of them. The other bit of ambiguity, there was the Exide battery site. There was a plan to develop mixed-use apartments and commercial building there. That's been put aside for a number of reasons. And we've learned that a Porsche dealership is likely to go there. The lease for that business has been signed by the property owner with Penske, which I guess owns the Porsche franchise. But there have been no property use plans filed yet with TPZ. And I've confirmed talking with Jim, when there is a property use plan for that site to house the Porsche dealership, which will be a pretty big Porsche dealership, we will be consulted and we will have an opportunity to review the plans at that time. And then Kim was in touch with me, telling me about the Army Corps of Engineers environmental assessment statement, which is going to be published shortly. And she has been dialoguing, and Jeff has been dialoguing with Country Club of Fairfield on that. And I think we'll hear more about that later in the meeting from Jeff. And that seems to be, there seems to be movement there. So that's briefly my report. Any questions? Good. I think we can go right to the Harbor Master's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few things. For activities since our last meeting in December, I went out to the yacht club and did my preliminary mooring inspection. As you know, 1/3 of the moorings are pulled every year. This was the year that what I call the town moorings, not the Helix area, not the North Anchorage, but all of the west wall, mid wall, south wall, Perry Green. All those moorings were pulled. They're brought ashore, and I do an inspection. I put some safety tape on the ones that I think should be repaired. I talked to the club's, Mr. Herman at the club already, and he and I are going to go back and double check what we've marked. It's probably going to be, they're very conservative, which is good. It's reassuring to all of us when they replace things. If there's any chance that something may not make it 3 years, we replace it, whether it's a chain, a bridle, an eye hook, anything like that. We look for any, these things wear down over time, and you just want to make sure one won't break during the year. So we're very cautious with that. So we did our preliminary inspection. Week after Christmas, walking along the jetty where I go, I noticed some debris floating on the shoreline. It was a large piece of debris, so we pulled it ashore and then drove around the country club side to get rid of it so it wouldn't wash back up the harbor again. It was an old dock box, a very large, half the size of this table, plastic box. January, as you know, this past weekend, we had some high tides. I sent pictures, I think, to most of you, if you can access them. Harbor Road was water all the way across the road. Harry Green was completely submerged on Saturday. Yee Yacht Yard, water came all the way up to the entrance. I went into the workshop at low tide later that day, and it never got up into the workshop. It stayed below that level, so everything is dry inside, and nothing happened to the electricity there inside. The lower wharf, again, had water up close to half of it. You could see the water had come up that high. The waves were splashing over at the end of Harbor Road on that last residence past the gate. Waves were coming up over that little wall onto the driveway. And the jetty was completely underwater. All you saw was the structure at the end of it. And there were some, even on Sunday when I went back out, there were rollers still coming in to the harbor because the wind had switched around to the southwest, and it was blowing up to 50. So it was quite rough out there. The good news is we had no moorings out at the time. So I went out there periodically and took and all the private docks along the coast and there, and everything was fine. Nothing broke loose, mainly because there's no vessels on them, so everything was pretty secured. Both Travis and Joe were at the club on Saturday, keeping an eye on things, checking their own vessels that were tied up there, monitoring their fuel tanks as well on their docks. So there was no damage to anything to be concerned about. So that's all good. We were lucky. So as for renewals started 12:01 a.m. on January 1st. This is my third full season with renewals. I can tell you, other than one glitch we had where one person on the waiting list got a bill for $1,000, which Online Mooring cannot figure what happened there, and they said we have no idea what happened, and their tech people have no idea why the system did that. Everything has been going great, knock on wood. About 2/3 plus of the people on the waiting list have paid their $10 and renewed already. About 1/3 or so of the people with the moorings have renewed. It's going much better. Very few people are having trouble with the website, getting documents up onto the website. So it's working really well for everyone. And the reminders went out. I know they went out because they went out on the 15th because yesterday, if I had 30 all people, and as well as people calling me concerned, like, I'm renewing, I'm just worried, I'm out of town for a week, don't give my mooring away. So people have got, our messaging is going out, we have custom messaging, so it's working out well, very well. I know we have one vacancy this year. Someone did cancel their mooring. It's for a small power boat in the 20-foot range. The person at the top of the list has a similarly sized boat, so I gave him a call to give him a heads up before he tries to pay his summer reservation at a private marina where he is. Don't send him any money. Let's talk first, because you're probably going in there. A couple of boats have changed sizes. I think we'll be okay. And one individual died in December, as you know. I spoke to his surviving spouse, and she's interested in, she's going to put the boat in her name and keeping the mooring. That's something which we could talk about next month. You as a commission have the authority to do that. The one doesn't automatically lose their mooring if a surviving spouse has good reason why he or she wants to assume the mooring. You allow that under your rules. So we'll talk about that next month. I'm sure we'll have a few more vacancies. Some boats may get repositioned by the yacht club onto their docks or maybe into their north anchorage, which may change our availability. Plus, everyone may not renew, so I'll let you know how that goes. But we'll get at least one so far coming in. And the only other thing coming up, I think there is a public event that you may be interested in at this Saturday. I think it's open to the public at Pequot about weather for sailors. If you're interested, I would talk about that because it seems like an interesting program of how to predict weather and plan weather for people that are sailors. I saw it was open to the public. And I'm going to be going to a meeting later this month that the town is having regarding SantaCon. Just to do some listening because I know there's a lot of debris that got into the water and that's not good for any of us, for boaters and for the environment. So I think as harbor master that might be a good, I should probably go and reinforce that the event aside, we can't have trash strewn on the beach like that because tides come up and it all went out. That's just gonna hurt the fish, birds, the aquatic birds, and boats if it gets caught and trapped in the boats. So, that's all I have, if there are no questions.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah. Perigee tide is what we had.
Okay.
I was doing some research on the tides that we had over the weekend. 4 to 6 times a year, the moon, we're at a particular position where the moon is so close. It's called perigee versus apogee, where it's the furthest away. When you have a perigee tide, which is what we had, new moon tide, all bets are off. That's when there's the most pull on the water, and you have the biggest in tides and out tides.
And a lot of water, I live up by the Mill River down at the end of my street, and that was very high, and there was quite a flow coming down the Mill River. If you went up to Perry's open space there on Bronson Road, you could see that bridge. The water almost came up to that bridge. The water comes up that high. And it was just really flowing. If you have water coming into the harbor from the north, once the jetty is breached because of the tide, you have all that water that can get blown by the wind in from that direction as well. So it was a perfect storm. Lots of water.
Yes, pretty dramatic. Yes, Jim.
The Corps of Engineers person today, she asked if there's any damage that was caused to the federal navigation structures, the jetty or the wall, or anything that can be attributed to this storm event, because that may increase the likelihood of additional federal funds.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed, and I have to go back and look, is and I haven't gone out at the end of the jetty yet. I plan on doing that this coming weekend, but I haven't been out there yet after the waters. Was on at Yee Yacht Yard, the metal dock to the left when you come in. As you know, there's that metal ramp going off. And when the water gets up high and it was over the top of that again, we had flowing water over it. If you look from the dock at low tide up, you can see there's a cavity where that metal ramp is held on by 2 metal plates that are just kind of, like this over the top of the concrete. The concrete's this thick, but you can get underneath it and, crawl in there if you want. And that concerns me. And I was watching it on Sunday morning when the winds were really gusting, and you could see that, there's a little bit of flexing going on. So I have a note to ask our town engineer to go back out there. I had him look at it last year. I want him to look at it again, because I just don't like, spaces under concrete. I don't want that whole thing to come loose. So if it does, a lot of people have boats to the north from there. That's a large dock with boats on it that we don't want careening up the channel towards the yacht club.
Well, if you looked at the beacon, the green beacon in the channel that was dislodged, I think it was in Sandy, and they replaced that. It looks like it's slanted just a tiny little bit, I thought, over the weekend.
On the rock pile?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we looked at it this summer, and I had the Coast Guard come out once. One of the panels came off of it. And
I think the whole structure looked like it was leaning just ever so slowly.
A little bit.
I could have been imagining things. But remember...
Yeah, it was, and they fixed it. They straightened it from what it was, but it's not perfect.
Damaged.
Okay. Kind of straight. But I will walk out there and take a look at that as well. And I don't know what more damage was done to the lower wharf. I'm sure there was when the water comes over, because we know from walking at low tide what happens to that wall and underneath it with the waves coming through as well.
Yeah. It was pretty dramatic. Thank you. Okay.
If anybody wants the pictures, I can send them again, or you can look at my phone. It's easier.
So there were no new applications received. And Jeff, can we talk about Lower Wharf repairs now and whatever you want to tell us based on your visit with Port Authority and so forth?
Well, there's much to talk about. We've already been here for an hour and a quarter. And also, Mr. Santa from RACE should participate in this discussion as well. Anyway, as Don mentioned, we had a talk with Senator Wong, and by the end of the month, we're going to send to him a statement or request for funds to repair the Lower Wharf. He's thinking of going directly to the Connecticut Bond Commission and asking for an allocation of funds. And as we talked about, this in effect would be bypassing the established grant program that's administered by the Connecticut Port Authority, which is for the purpose of funding projects such as this. I met with perhaps you know a little bit about the Connecticut Port Authority. They're responsible for the State Pier project in New London and the wind, developing that, and the small harbors has been sort of a secondary thought to them as the State Pier project has been worked on. We had received a grant from the Port Authority several years ago for dredging at the area of the boat launching ramp. We have to return some of that money because we were not able to do the dredging project through no fault of our own. So we had asked if we could transfer that money to repairs of the lower wharf, but we were. So I've been working on an accounting of what we have to return to them because we did have some valid expenses in trying to achieve the dredging project. Last year, the Port Authority did not have a grant program of this sort. And the reason is that the person who was, well, several reasons, because of the cost overruns at the State Pier, which went from $93 million to over $300 million, and also they've lost the person at the Port Authority who administered this grant program. So they don't have the capability right now. I met with them, the executive director, on Friday to talk about a lot of this stuff. Hire a new person that would be able to administer this small harbor grant program in the spring or the summer, and then to announce another round of grants in the third quarter of this year. And our project for repairing the lower wharf is fundable through this grant program. So we have to, and Senator Wong is aware of this. We don't want to diminish the existing grant program that's available to all of the towns, to bypass that. But so we're trying to sort this all out. But there's some key questions that have to do with sorting it out. For example, how much money are we going to ask for? So in 2022, so over a year ago, RACE put together for us an opinion of probable costs for the replacement of the lower wharf and also work on the wall. And that at that time, the opinion of probable costs was $787,000. So our 20% of assuming we were to get that amount from the Port Authority, is responsible for 20% of that. But now we have another issue, and Devin will talk about it. Our existing permit or approval for all this work does not include the North Pier. And that's probably an oversight on our part. But the opinion of probable cost, there's two issues here. One, I think it should be updated. You know, this was over a year ago. And Devin, Mr. Sternberg said it would be a few hours of time to update this now. But also, this opinion of probable cost allocates $220,000 for the replacement of the North Pier, including drill piles. And so what do we do about that? Do we include this as part of our project with the funds that we're asking for it? And Devin has been communicating with DEEP as to what's needed to get the approval. And now we've learned, and it doesn't seem to be logical, that DEEP has said we need to apply for a full permit to get the permission to replace the North Pier. But what we have, in effect, we have the drawings, right? We have the plans. It's just a permit takes time, and then there's a public notice period. So I guess there's two questions tonight to ask the Commission. Will the Commission allocate the funds necessary to update this opinion of probable cost? And it would be a few hours of an engineer's time. And then what do we do about seeking the approval to replace the North Pier? So those are two key things. So when we write this letter by the end of January to Senator Wong with what we think this is all going to cost, I think we need to have an updated opinion and decide what to do about the North Pier. So that's a lot of words, but that's my report on that.
One question I have is, I know the deed says that we're responsible for maintaining the pier as is or similar. And it would not having the north part of it be considered similar? We just left that out.
I think the commission should discuss, whether you want to leave it out or not. I think,
It seems like we have an opening to do that because of the language in the deed.
is that what we want to do? And then if we don't pursue the permit to replace that, would it also behoove us to remove the derelict pilings? So that would be part of the cost associated with the removal of those derelict pilings. But yeah, Devin and I had discussed this and we talked about it separately, and I asked if I could go as well. And I just don't understand Deep's argument for requiring a permit, because we had a permit for everything. That was renewed several years. It expired. We had to apply for another approval. They reapproved everything with a certificate of permission. We didn't include the North Pier, and now they say we have to get a permit to do the North Pier, and it's hard to understand or argue with. So my thought was that, again, for its worth, we talked about, first of all, getting a permit to do everything, and then depending on the money that we could get, maybe we don't repair the North Pier. And then also whether you wish to allocate funds to get the permit for the North Pier. Now Senator Wong also said that he was going to talk with the Port Authority about maybe some of that the money that we earned from the earlier dredging grant. We don't have, maybe they agree that we don't have to return it, and we can use some of that money for maybe the permit application. So there's a lot of unknowns, but we need to have an estimate of what we're asking for right now in terms of funds.
So what I think I hear you saying is we need to revise the estimate that's been prepared because it's out of date, and it may need to include work on the North Pier.
It already does.
It does.
But we may want to allocate money for race to get the permit to restore the North Pier. That's a separate part. I think we would want to have the estimate include replacement of the North Pier to be safe.
So the 800,000 that Race has estimated right now does not include.
It does.
It doesn't.
$780,000 includes $220,000 for the North Pier.
Okay. And there are two piers. There's the one that recently washed away. That's the southern pier.
Yes. It had the connection with the top of the lower wharf.
And the northern section was knocked out in the previous storm.
That's been yes, knocked out.
Gone a long time.
But we never had the money to repair it. We never. Right. Although when we put together our total, what we called lower wharf improvement project, that repair of the North Pier was included in that, and that included work on the new members work on the repair and replace the launching ramp, which the town did with its own funds. It also included dredging at the base and out a little bit from the launching ramp, and we got a Port Authority grant for that. That was all part of the same permit.
So the only issue is that Deep now wants us to redo the permit for the North Pier.
Yes.
Right, there'd be costs attached to that.
Yes, that would be raises, but we had the design for it. You know, it's not like we had to do another design. That was part of what we had asked to be approved through So it's just it's mostly time, wouldn't it be, Devin, and filling out the application in a way. But we have the engineering.
Yeah, that's all done. It's just, the time to fill the form out, or a portion of the path they want us to take is a lot of time, and it is public comment, and there's a lot of twists and turns down that road that maybe.
Just a bookkeeping question. I don't know what it costs to do what's being proposed, and I don't know if our budget normally has this kind of money. It doesn't have it in it. I mean, where would we take that money from the other account that we have, the mooring account? Thank you. Some question here.
Do you have an estimate of the cost that
I
would
think
be?
it'd be in the $5,000 to $7,000 range. I think this question, how much does the commission want that northern leg, and not so much another pier, just whether it's a keypad or LHAC. It's all the same pier, I think. My interpretation would be the same pier. I've never known that L-head, the northern section of T-head to exist, in my experience there. Someone around here probably remembers it, but I don't. So
If we went along and included the North Pier in the plan, and then it turns out that if we don't have enough money to do it all, couldn't that be kind of dialed back? And
easily enough, I think the sunken cost there is going through the permit, in that time that it would take. But if you don't have the funding and you have the time, then maybe it makes sense to let that kind of chug along through the regulatory process. If you want that optionality, having that. There's another factor, the costs. Rock ledge is shallower up at the north edge, so that the northern leg of that is likely to be more expensive than the southern leg of it. So if you're only going to replace one of the legs of the T-head, you want to replace the southern leg, the one that's deeper.
Right, because there's less ledge there.
Yeah, it's deeper, allowing us to drive piles deeper. So,
But for the newer members, that northern part was, in our original plan, was to provide a dock for the community sailing program there. That's what we had envisioned, and then Ray did an analysis of the subsurface conditions, and that's where the ledge is, coming off that northernmost part of the lower wharf. So we eliminated the community sailing dock from our plan. But when we did the deed originally, we specifically included that the lower wharf could include a dock for the community sailing program. But we abandoned that.
All right. So, commissioners, does anybody have any preference or comment or position of support or opposition?
It sounds as though that the northern section is not really all that needed, and it would take much more time and money to get it done. And I mean, we're already worried about the lower wharf being utilized or causing more attention to users. Maybe what we want to do is cause less attention and have a smaller wharf available.
And you can see where the northern, thank you. And there's this of course is before the storm of last December, but that's the area that we're talking about.
The southern.
The northern.
This is the northern.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
That's the northern part.
So effectively, we've not had a workable northern part of the pier since we've taken over Lower Wharf, I believe.
When the harbor, many years ago, this section extended out here, and the Harbor Commission obtained the permit to remove it. And that's when we were thinking that this was the area for the extension and placement of the community sailing dock.
Right.
And then more recently, the Shellfish Commission, I believe, Bruce, you had some upwellers in here, but that was years ago.
That was thinking.
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff.
I would definitely be in favor of not doing the northern part, since we already have the permit for the southern. Simplify things tremendously by just not doing it. And also, the way that the pier is used now, it's used by a small handful of fishermen. A couple of people go out there at a time. I don't think it's really needed.
And actually, we've not had it to use since we've had Lower Wharf, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? I mean, we've never used the northern pier. It's never been available for the public to use. It's always been in disarray. Is that correct? Since there's been a Lower Wharf, that was, you're not sure?
Historically,
Greg's cutting in, that's close there.
Just out of curiosity, aesthetic, just because obviously I'm, as a new member, I mean, aesthetically, do people care about it, whether it's actually T-shaped or it's not T-shaped? Do the sailors or boaters care whether it's there or not care?
No.
No?
I don't.
And Mr.
So
Leclerc,
it's really the only thing you're losing is the potential for a community sailing program, which doesn't sound like it never really got.
We have community sailing, the big scale, ideal 18-foot sailboats, because the keels they have drawing, 4.5 feet or something.
3 feet.
It's not gonna be deep enough there. Not deep enough. So where they are is if you go down to Yee Yacht Yard to the northernmost dinghy dock, with the metal ramp going through, there's 2 sailboats, Goose and Gander at the end, that's community sailing.
Okay, yep.
And I can tell you, as a community sailing member, we're over it. You know, we have accepted the fact that that's not where we're fine with where the boats are now.
So you, not only would you have to build the north dock, but then you'd also have to figure out how to dredge it deep enough so that you could actually use it for something other than just a larger fishing platform.
I think that's all you're getting is a fishing platform, because the low tide now, you can't tie maybe a dinghy, nothing much. Right. It's really not practical, I don't think.
We never envisioned it as a pier or a dock to accommodate vessels. It was views of the harbor and as a walk.
The ability to get a little closer to the water.
A little closer to the water.
100 years ago, that's what it was, those big ships would
So-
come up there, but a lot's changed.
I'm sensing that there seems to be sentiment towards just focusing on the southern part of the wharf and putting the northern part of the wharf out of our focus and updating the budget accordingly.
But if we did that, and, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say one last question, because there's a lot of, momentum required and effort required to actually get people to approve a budget. So is there any advantage to including the northern wharf in there, getting more budget dollars, and then being able to reallocate them?
And I think it's risky when you're doing something, which you did to reduce your.
You have cost overruns over here, and that takes it, I don't know, I don't know how that process works, but, whenever you're asking for money, I think it's better to ask for more, and then when they want to dial you back, you can throw away the north wharf.
I think that's the problem.
And then I think it also, just to make sure we touch all the bases, is we need to discuss this with Sasquatch. Because they have a role according to the deed of whatever is proposed to take place on this property. So when we had this first proposal with the community sailing dock and the whole project, we met, the commission, with residents and Sasquatch to get them to agree to the whole project that we were proposing. I don't think that they would object to it, but I think we should still ask them and tell them this is our intent. Because if we revise the scope of work, we would still, I think, have a cost associated with the North Pier, and that would be for the removal of the pylons. If we were to abandon the idea of ever doing anything there.
But that doesn't require a permit change to remove the pylons.
I don't think so. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's something we can check.
We did lean on the precedent of those piles for the permitting back in 2009.
The original permitting, yeah.
So I don't know that I'd cut and abandon them.
Well, actually, when we removed the northernmost part of the North Pier, we did have to get an approval to do that from DEEP. When we wanted to open up that area for the community sailing dock. So we did need a separate approval from DEEP to take those pilings out.
If we needed one, I would think it'd be the same. I can't imagine it would be a full construction show permit requiring public notice, or a general permit.
Yeah.
So there's 2 decisions that I think I'm hearing we need. One is do we focus only on the southern pier, or do we include the southern and the northern pier? And that's one decision. And the other decision is, do we approve the additional money needed to revise the cost estimate?
Which Steve said would be a few hours of a professional engineer's time.
Yeah.
So not to exceed,
And not to exceed $500.
to update the
Using
engineer
checks and
cost.
discussion.
So, does that need to be approved, I think? Yes, I'm getting it, thank you. So, do I have a motion to, focus on just the southern pier?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
19.
Okay.
You might have to clarify that motion, what you mean by focus.
Sure.
That's not very clear, but.
Well, so what is the motion? It's to, well, the focus, you could say that. I mean, that our effort will be to replace the southern portion of the pier, of the wharf.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's different than just focusing, okay.
correct. Thank you for that.
I had asked Mr. Leclerc, once before, when we lost the south part of the pier, if the pilings posed a hazard to navigation, and you didn't think they did.
No, because they're so close to the wall. The pilings pose, well, they're visible. Part of it is they're visible. So I suppose at high tide, if we, we have a couple of the outer ones are still there. So folks would know coming through that, not to go that close. You're saying if you chopped them off at water level or not, if you cut all the pilings off at ground level, it's no different than having nothing there, really.
Right.
If you leave them up, it shows people something's there. We have an extra buoy if we need it. We looked at that last year. It's being stored over at Pequot. And we can just put a skin on it if we had to with a triangle or a diamonds rather.
Right.
Reflector, if we felt the need to put a private mark to tell people don't go that close. But
I'm just saying about the northern pier, if we do not repair it, those pilings.
Oh, those are not, I can't, they're there, so people aren't.
Yeah.
They are there.
So
visible.
maybe we don't need perfect world, we'd have them taken out, but.
I don't know that you need to. Especially if you're gonna put the other pier in, with the other pier there, it's obvious what.
Right. Because of the permitting process.
I mean, you can't protect against stupid, but,
I think the motion that you were making.
Drive their boat anywhere, but they run them aground all the time in the harbor, because they don't realize that, the north anchorage gets shallow. If you look at a chart, you'd be able to see.
I think we just agreed, though, to focus, prioritize development, replacement, repair of the southern pier.
Right.
Versus the southern and the northern pier. Our priority and focus for repair and replacement would be the southern pier. And we need another motion to approve the $500 to revise the budget? Yes, we do.
Can I do that only for the northern pier? I thought. Is that for the southern? Is it 500 for the southern?
I think the motion that I heard that approved was to focus development and prioritize repair and replacement of the southern pier.
Correct.
Mr. Stedman could answer that, whether we need to revise anything if we're not.
So I'm getting.
In addition to the southern pier is the wall itself, we have permission to do.
Yeah.
Work needs to be done on the stone wall and on the sinkholes behind it and so forth. So that's still part of our project.
That's right.
We have approval to do that work.
That's been historically approved by the commission.
The $500 is to reevaluate the estimate for the work, right?
For the work that we're.
For the northern?
Southern.
Southern section. We're leaving the northern section alone.
That's my understanding.
So I move that we approve the $500 for the additional work to the estimate.
Revise and update the estimate for repairing and replacing the southern pier and all the bulkhead area around the wharf.
Second.
Seconded by Jeff.
And then for discussion, that also should include, I think, the removal of the north tiers.
Yeah, I mean, if we're not gonna develop it, we might as well remove those
The remnant tiers.
remnant piers.
You mean the pilot?
The pilot, yeah, that could be removed.
That gets into a lot more money though, doesn't it?
I think it's already part of the estimate was to remove those northern pier pilings, right, because
No.
they weren't?
The estimate was,
The past estimate had demo of everything, and reconstruction of everything.
Yeah,
New
it did,
drill-
was included.
new drilled pilings was part of your estimate.
Right.
So in order to do that, you have to.
Had to take the old
oh,
stuff out.
okay, good.
So they go out.
Good.
The only thing new that comes in is to the south and the bulkhead. And we get rid of all the old pilings. I think that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, if you're removing all old pilings, then you could actually make it a T again and center it on the, you know, it would just be a smaller than the original, right?
Yeah,
So,
you could create a new mini north and south.
yes, exactly. So,
But, yeah, right, smaller north and south.
aesthetically, that might be look a little nicer.
You mean to have the pier go from the north to the southern part of the,
Right, just have to,
Right.
the whole,
the gangway in the same place it's always been, just
Recenter.
Yeah,
recenter the.
center the gangway.
Recenter the southern.
Center the gangway so that it's so, right, because the past gangway is just at the northerly end of it.
You may want to ask Devin if
do we have that
we can do that.
flexibility?
Well, we'd have to ask the permitting agencies again, and then we'd be putting it into the shallow area of rock ledge again.
Forget it.
Hopefully, it might be okay. I think we're fine under a de minimis change of changing the position of something the same size, but you can ask the question if you want to ask the question.
Okay. How do you feel about that?
Let's not complicate it.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
I mean, if it's only just for a couple fishermen really and people walking up there to wave at the boats going by, why go the extra expense?
Right.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the $500.
All in favor of approving that motion?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Very good. Okay, I think, Jeff, what about, sand management comments, or are you, anything on sand management?
Well, that's our federal dredging project, and as John mentioned at the outset, the Corps of Engineers, I talked to the project manager this afternoon. They're now getting the signatures necessary to put forth their federal environmental assessment of the dredging project. It's not an environmental impact statement because it's not a new project, it's what's been maintained in the past. So that should be released, and that's going to have an opportunity for public comments for 30 days. So we'll have, at our next meeting in February, we'll have the environmental assessment, but we should be prepared to respond to it with of course, a statement of support. Since this is being done at the request of the Harbor Management Commission, and the Harbor Management Commission represents the town as the non-federal sponsor of the navigation. So we'll have time to look at it. There'll be a 30-day notice. It'll be published, it's indicated today, within the next week or so. We'll have time to discuss a response to it next month. And then there's also going to be the need for coordination now with the Country Club of Fairfield, because of the need for access to their property. And the other aspect of this is that the dredge that will be used is called it's a hydraulic hopper dredge, the Corps owns, called the Curitas. You just look at that on the search board on the.
Called the what?
Curitas.
That's the name of it.
The Curitas.
CRRITUCK. You'll find that easily, and that operates out of the, Delaware, I think, the District of the Court. But anyway, that dredge has not worked in Southport Harbor before. So whoever is in charge of that will need to visit the harbor probably in February. And also need to talk with the public works people who were involved, the town public works people who were involved back in 2014 and 15 with the excavation of material and access along the beach. So there'll be like a pre-construction scoping out the work, and our hope is still that this work can be done in the fall of next year. But there's still a lot to do, including the DEP permit. But the first step of the environmental assessment that they said is they've completed that and will be issued for public comment.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the mooring committee report. Jeff?
Yes, well, we still have not met, had a meeting of the mooring committee because everything's running so smoothly. So I'll still query Brian and see if we need to have a meeting. But so far, everything's going great. So if there are any glitches, maybe we might have a meeting next month. So we'll go from there.
Okay.
We may want to meet at the few. We'll talk about Brian because you're going to have one individual who's going to want to take your decision to talk about. So that's his mooring. So you might have to come to the committee and make a recommendation.
Research on that.
All right. Okay. We'll do it by Zoom quickly. Yeah. Okay.
At the last meeting, you may recall, we found ourselves wondering if we needed some bylaws, if there were any kinds of additional regulation or guidelines that we needed to function efficiently as a commission, because there were questions raised about the voting protocol. And I asked Chris to look into that initially and just have some conversation with the town clerk and others to see what other commissions are doing. Maybe it's necessary, maybe it's not necessary. What did you learn?
So, I'll just keep it quick. I spoke to Betsy Brown, and she said that of the town committees, organizations, there are no actual bylaws that they operate under except for the RTM. There are, it's the Robert's Rules of Order, and it's the compliance to the Freedom of Information Act, that's what they're worried about. So she was unaware of anything that we might emulate and bring to us. And I'm talking about bylaws and structure of what, I've seen in other organizations of this type. And so I called Jeff, who is the knower of all in so many ways. I knew that he would have some answers. He shared with me the bylaws of the Norwalk Harbor Management Commission, which of course is the city of Norwalk. It's a much bigger organization, a much bigger entity. It's a group of 9, not 7 commissioners, and it's they have jurisdiction over a very large area, the big harbor there with a lot going on, as you all know. So they've got 14 pages of bylaws, and some of which are very important, some of which are not. And I think I'd like to go through it a little bit more and maybe report back to you with further findings, Donna, because I'm not sure you really want to have, us operate under a set of bylaws that you're bound to. Maybe there are some things, some best practices, rather than calling them bylaws, just calling them best practices, that you might just sort of adopt, if that's a way of thinking about it.
Sure.
But I'll come back to you with some more information later.
Yeah.
I think the reason that it came up was on the selection of officers was the issue. So that was the protocol for who votes, who doesn't vote, when, right now. Yeah.
Well, I talked to Betsy Brown about that. I said, look, you're asking the new commissioners to come in the day one. The first vote is to decide who the officers are without having just met them at that moment, which doesn't seem to make much sense to me. And she said, yes, maybe so, but that's what every organization does, because they have to. You must have the calendar for your meetings set and your officers set by January 1, period. So like it or not, that's the way it has to operate on that particular issue.
just an idiosyncrasy of our system because of how it's developed historically, right or wrong. Thank you.
Got to rely on the judgment of that former committee, right?
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
It's the way the town fathers and mothers wanted it. Thank you. Thank you for investigating that, and I welcome hearing whatever you find. I mean, if there are things that we can do better, let's look at them. Let's consider them. But maybe it's not necessary. Okay, I think we're moving on. You've each received a copy of the budget, I think. Where we are, it's pretty straightforward. We're spending down our budget. I don't think there are any big surprises in it, if you've looked at it. As I've mentioned, I did have an email exchange with the budget director today, and he confirmed that, yes, we have put in a request for an additional $1,000 for that sign, but until it's approved, you don't have it. So if we don't have it, we can't spend it. Any questions on the budget? Okay. The only other item under...
I'm sorry to
Yes.
belabor this, but just since I'm new, what is the procedure for this? Is just quickly.
I think it's in November that we put together our budget, and we had a special meeting in November.
Got it.
Where we reviewed the budget, which pretty much is a historic repetition of the budget in the year before.
Right.
We haven't added a lot. You know, there are two accounts that we work with. One is this budget, and there's a larger budget that is made up of the fees collected for moorings and so forth, and we use that money to pay for all of the heavy-duty work that has to go on to maintain those systems.
Yeah.
And sometimes I gather we dip into that to buy other things that are big-ticket items, things like that.
So this is more just, hey, committee, here's the update in terms of where we stand.
Yeah, it's pretty pro forma.
Got it.
Okay. The last thing is committee appointments. I've talked to a few people, a few of the new people, Mike and Belinda, and Mike has asked to be on the dredging committee, and Belinda has agreed to be on the Lower Wharf committee, and we actually haven't spoken about what committee assignment you might want to take on, but we can do that. Otherwise, I would expect that we'll continue with the existing committee assignments that we have, unless there's a wish to move around or anything like that.
I'm happy to serve whether there's a vacancy and you need me, whatever you need.
Okay. Well, we'll talk. Thank you very much.
Will you have commission members on your committees as well?
Yes. Well, yes, we do. Yeah.
You should consider that as well, because you have some folks that have recently come off this commission that should certainly be on.
Yeah. For example, Kim is on the plan review committee, and you've been on the dredging committee. And I would expect you might want to continue with that work.
That's exactly what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
Because her institutional knowledge, we desperately need.
Yeah, and memory for what's...
And Coral likes it. They bonded.
And Cora.
I said Coral is the name of the young lady.
Yeah, no, it's a great name for an Army Corps of Engineers. Okay, I think we've reached the end of our agenda. Are there any public comments?
We have some old business, or just a...
Oh, yes.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, is that Mr. Carroll?
Yes, Mr. Carroll.
Yes, Mr. Carroll.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Carroll.
Well, I want to congratulate you on a well done for your first meeting. I would say to you that the sign item on your agenda probably is the longest that I have listened to in some 25 years listening to meetings, so congratulations. But I don't say that in a derogatory manner. I think it's well that something of this nature is given much consideration by the commission before a final decision is made. I know there's some pros and cons, and I just don't want to see that lower wharf cluttered with this is just a personal feeling, with a large sign, but be that as it may, I have a couple of other comments, Mr. Chairman, that I would like to make, but it's late, so if I may just send an email to you within the next couple of days, might be sufficient to close this meeting.
Thank you very much. That would be just fine.
Thank you very much, all.
Thank you for your support, and yes, it has been a long discussion on the sign, and I'm glad we could bring it to some closure tonight. Jeff, you had something else to add?
Yeah, I think there's 4 things that we need to be aware of that are significant that we'll have to deal with. We talked about the lower wharf and the dredging project, but we also have to be prepared to deal with the update to the plan of conservation and development. We don't have a schedule yet for when they're going to have a public hearing on that, but we'll need to submit comments to the TP&Z Commission with a request that the revised plan of conservation and development properly reference the harbor management plan and provide support for the harbor management plan. That's something we talked about. But as I talk with the TP&Z people, we don't have a schedule yet for doing that, but we have to be prepared for that. We also have to deal with the UI proposal, because that's something that's going to be subject to our review, as it may affect the Mill River and Sasko Brook and the Exide property. And that's quite interesting. There's a bunch of things that we can talk about that. We don't have anything submitted to us now to review, and our role with the Siting Council, we provided a letter to that effect, but we have to be recognized that we're going to have to deal with that. Also, the update to the harbor management plan, which has sort of been put on hold pending the plan for the dredging project, which was to be a key element of the harbor management plan. And also affecting the update to the harbor management plan is the authority of the Harbor Management Commission. Because, you know, there's the court case from 2 years ago that found that the Harbor Commission has no authority with respect to state actions. And so that leads us into the 4th item, which is, again, support for an amendment this legislative session of the Harbor Management Act to clarify the authorities of the Harbor Management Commission, which Senator Wong said he would help us with. Now, last session, this commission agreed to support the same amendment that we would put forth this year. And it's not just us, but all of the Harbor Commissions putting forth that amendment. So those are 4 big things that, that we have to deal with. I just wanted to put those on the record here.
Right. We have discussed each of them in the past, but it's good that you enumerated them as additional things that we'll be thinking about, because all these plans and documents and papers and legislative changes really affect everything we might do, and as tedious as they might sound sometimes, they're really very important. Okay. That said, I think we've reached the end of our agenda. It's 6:30. I thank you all for coming. I'm sorry I was a little rough at times, but I'll get better at this. I'll take a motion to adjourn. So moved. Any second?
Seconded.
Motion by Chris, motion by Jeff, seconded by Chris. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Thank you all for being online. And if we're going to go to the horseshoe, this is a good time.